Okay, so if you don't know me, I'm Margaret Carney, and I'm director and curator of the International Museum of Dinnerware Design in Kingston, New York. I want to welcome everybody. Thank you so much. I feel like I've missed every single one of you during the summertime. Every month I would say to Bill, oh, we should do another Zoom, just an impromptu one. And it didn't happen. Something else would come up. We were just going to surprise people with having some Zooms about various topics. Wendy is a wonderful artist and designer, and she is now running Mottahedeh, which is the 100th year anniversary right now, and hence her talk about the 100th year. And she has a degree from Mount Holyoke College and Pratt Institute of Art, and she worked as a sculptor in bronze. So I'm interested to find out how she went from being an artist and designer to running this magnificent company. And I think you're going to be fascinated by her story. So right now I'm going to turn it over to her after I wave this book, which
is heavy.
it's heavy and it's gorgeous. Anyway, so you're going to show some images from here and talk all about it. So I think I'm just going to turn it over to you, but I know some of you will be really interested in having this for your own and going to sleep with it some night and looking at all the beautiful pictures and reading about it. And thank you very much, Wendy, for being here. And I'm looking forward to everything you have to say. So I'm turning it over to Wendy Kvalheim right now.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be able to talk to you. And there's so many things to say that I'm going to try to talk relatively quickly. And hope you enjoy the pictures as we go. And I want to thank Margaret and Bill for doing this, which is something, the endeavor that they're undertaking is something that's dear to my heart, as probably it is to many of you. And I wanted also to thank Carolyn Solis for putting together this nice presentation of visuals, and Paul Wojcik, who works as the chief visual officer at Mottahedeh, and we're sort of partners in crime because he's got a left hand and I've got a right hand, and together we have two heads.
A full hand.
So to start with, I have my little thing of notes, which are the simple version of doing this when you're not that technically accomplished, which is my case. So I'm going to share my screen now. So the name of our book is 100 Years of Mottahedeh Design, and in reality, there's so much material that was developed over the years that it's really not possible to cover it all, especially since the original photography was with what do you call them? With transparencies, and we didn't have digital photography, so some of the things way back then are not available to us anymore. The subject of Mottahedeh covers the time period of the 1700s, which were the heyday of porcelain in all parts of the world, starting out with the Koreans, the Japanese, the Chinese, and later the Europeans. When the trade became possible with clipper ships and various things across the ocean, porcelain became a really important level of trade, as well as people were crazy about it, because when you think about it, before there was ceramic, people were eating with wooden bowls, pewter, plenty of arsenic and other things, which lead, which probably wasn't very good for them. And they grabbed onto this idea of wealth being represented in porcelain. So Mottahedeh concentrates on the Chinese ancient period, as well as the Europeans who figured out how to make porcelain in the 1700s, about 1720 to 1740. That's Mildred and Raffi, about the time that they were married. Mildred grew up in Rumson, New York, and Staten Island, and Raffi was a refugee and very industrious and very well educated. Um, Mildred and Raffi had a business that evolved over time because they were not in the porcelain business to begin with. They were in the luxury goods business where they would travel to different parts of the world and they would find fabrics or, in some cases, ceramic or medallions or furniture or just anything that was of interest. And over time, it developed into the production of ceramics, but that happened. They started out in the 1920s, and at the time of the Second World War, when things dried up, with the war, a lot of antiques and luxury goods became unavailable. They decided to get into the foray of making things. When Mildred sold her company to us, at this point, Raffi had passed away, and it was in 1992 that my husband and another couple who were bankers, my husband was a banker, they decided to see about buying Mildred's company because she was looking for somebody who would have the same passion for it and understand the reasons for continuing with it that they had. And prior to that, when my husband and I moved to New York City, I was looking for a job, and of course, she called up the Metropolitan Museum and said, I have a young person here who has had some work in metals. And the metal work that I had done was at Mount Holyoke College, in really primitive bronze casting. Anyway, I went for an interview, and I saw the basement of the Metropolitan Museum, which was quite an eye-opener. They were making all kinds of things that they were selling in their shops that were replicas of things in their collection. And I said, oh my goodness, if I had known this was around, I would have studied it. So then I went and studied it. So the um, the library that they collected over the years is shown here. This library is probably one of the best decorative arts libraries anywhere because it has books about the different factories, how to make things. It's got the Europeans, it's got the Chinese, it's got butterflies, boats, all kinds of things that you would want to know about. And then many books on interior decorating. And so when I'm looking for something, looking for information about something, I go to this library and I feel very fortunate that I can thumb through the pages and see what they're saying about it. I wanted to say at the top, on this slide, at the top, you see three bowls that are in the shape of motifs. We call a motif a bowl that has a divot in it, and they say that originally it was for chilling wine glasses, that they would put the glass upside down and rest it on these little notches. Well, the first one came from the Metropolitan Museum, and that's the one in the middle. And so we made that shape, and this was exactly the decoration that was in the museum. A number of years later, Ronald Reagan, when he was leaving the office in 1983, wanted to give a bowl or some memento to the members of his cabinet. And this one on the right is what Mildred and he and Nancy Reagan designed as a presentation bowl. And around the outside has the presidential seal, which only presidents can use, and words of some of his favorite speeches, which are high-minded and compelling. And in the bottom of the bowl, it says, I mean, on the underside, it says, recalling 8 memorable years, uh, Ronald Reagan. And then on the left-hand side of the year, you see another Monteith bowl there, the year of the millennium, when we thought that all the computers were going to shut down the whole world. We made this bowl and we used some of the motifs of the Reagan bowl, and uh, the the butterflies at the top are against a sky of stars. And this was taken from Nelson Rockefeller's dinner service that he made when he had a collection with Mottahedeh. He would go around the world and find beautiful things and just put them in a crate and ship them to New York to the office. And there they would see about what they could do to make a reproduction. One of the very last slides at the end, I'll show you what that looked like. We also, so on the right-hand side, I don't know if the image of things is covering it up. This is the interior of the bowl that we made in the year 2000. And it was hopes for mankind, the earth is but one country and mankind its citizens. I'm not going to be as long-winded about everything as that. The first um, the first thing that we concentrated on when during Mrs. Mottahedeh made porcelain was blue Canton, we call this. So people are very familiar with this. This is blue Canton, and it was probably the biggest import into the United States in the 1700s, and was one of the first colors that the Chinese and others figured out how to use, because it's made with cobalt, and cobalt is a naturally occurring element, oxide, which you might know, and it turns blue when it's high fired, higher than normal porcelain. On the left is a pottery tulipier, which is painted in cobalt as well. And at the craze of tulips in Europe, this was a very sought after item. It's a little weird. It's got weird stuff on it. So during that time period, the great clipper ships of China and Europe were on the seas, and they were bringing porcelain of all sorts. This is an adaptation of a lithograph showing the Boston Harbor in the 1700s. I think it's the 1700s. I'm not very good at the dates. One of the oldest styles and most popular today, even today, is this one here, which we call tobacco leaf. People are very familiar with this. It's been around since we did this reproduction with the Metropolitan Museum in 1972. And so this is our most popular pattern today. It has lots of colors and it has gold. And so there are 27 different colors, all made with oxides. I wanted to talk a little bit about production, because porcelain is made using naturally occurring metals from the ground. And in order to make them viable, they have to be fired all at the same time. That means that every time you are adding a color, you're adding a different type of oxide, and it needs to fire in one go. But with this one, we have to fire first the blue and then put the other colors on the top, which fire at a lower temperature. So when people say, they would like to have a blank space in the middle of the plate because they don't want to compete with the food, what I say to people is, well, this flies in the face of that, because on a tobacco leaf platter, you can't even find your food. So, uh, it doesn't matter. You know, some of these things that we think are um, de rigueur of the day, we ignore them, I have to say. The first pattern that I worked on, which I is one of my favorites still, but very, very fancy, is Marion. Maria Sibylla Marion is a woman who was responsible for knowledge about the transformation of insects. And she was a woman, and so she was not allowed to be gainfully employed, and she wasn't really considered. So she would take these bugs home on a leaf or a piece of paper or something else, and she would paint these beautiful flowers with the bugs on it. And we took out the caterpillars and the crawling insects and uh, only allowed the flying insects because we knew that people might not like that if they were eating their food and looking at a caterpillar. So she did all of these drawings in black and white drawings, and um, she didn't color them in, but she had so many of these beautiful flowers that what we did is we went back to the Book of Botanicals, and which was produced in 1685. Her father was a Flemish painter, landscape painter, and he passed away. And her mother married a foremost printer in the town of, come on, what's the town? Nuremberg. But the book made it around the world, and the Chinese were painting, whatever they could think of. And they painted this plate, which then we made a version where we copied it. We painted this plate with gouache and watercolors. And so this is an actual painting that we did. And then we put it on all sorts of different shapes. Now, you know about decals that go on model airplanes and other things, and even on your wrist as a tattoo as a child. And when we make a decoration, first of all, we fire the ceramic so that it's shiny and clear glazed and white. And then we dip this design in water. It's covered with a layer of shellac to keep it from floating off into different spheres, and apply it to the finished good, which is on the upper left-hand side, if you can see. So we make these decals with the lithographer, very specific to the particular thing that we're making, and we hand them the decorations that they need to finish the design on the plate. And that way we can control. I need to figure out where that cursor is. There it is. So we need to figure out how to do that. And for instance, Dan, you'll be very aware and knowledgeable and probably proud of this. This is a shape that Dan Melman made for us, for Mottahedeh, which was a reproduction of Duke of Gloucester, which is a single dinner service produced for the brother of King George III. And I never can remember the dates, but it was produced at the Royal Worcester Company, and it's still a-going today, and it's all hand painted with the green on there, and then on the finial and everything else is a decal. Once it's fired, the decals fuse onto the surface of the porcelain, but they have to make sure that you call it, that it fits properly, because if the glaze and the decals don't match the surface of the product, it will crack or splinter off in the firing and it won't be any good. This is from Colonial Williamsburg. We have a license for this. Oh, I wanted to talk a little bit about the creative process, because some of the things that we have are exact reproductions, some of them are adaptations, and some of them are things that people haven't seen before. And for instance, this soup plate is something that Mildred and Williamsburg shared. She gave it to them, and they made a dinner service which was doing very well, especially for the brides. But some people felt that it was too fancy for a young bride, which is often the case. And so we took, you can see here, we call this inside border that looks like a solid, it's called a diaper pattern. We took the diaper pattern and we took all the doodads off of it and we put it on a service plate, which is a bigger plate, the one on the bottom here, on the right-hand side. And the all of a sudden that just doubled our sales, because people might have a dinner that was the fancy version, and then the soup plate might be the less fancy version. And so often there's a motif that is compelling. What's compelling about this dinner service is that, well, first of all, we only made one plate. We made the blue cobalt plate. And this is all line work. You can't really tell because it looks like it's blue, but those dark dots are in the center and then there's lines. And it looks like a solid, but it's not a solid. So when the colors go on, they might be very deep, let's say rose, but when it's put into this format, it looks pink. So there's a lot of R&D, trying to figure out what to do to make what you want. So over time, we realized that first we started with a blue, then we had a red, green, black, purple, brown, all sorts of different colors for the service plates. But then, since it was compelling, we decided to expand into dinnerware. So, I mean, service plate is a dinnerware, but so we made pink, apple green, leaf green, cornflower blue, cobalt, and now we're introducing, coming up in the fall, I forgot that one, plum, and the other one is turquoise. So this is just a combination of all those different colors. And what we're finding is that as a secondary pattern, it sells very well, but you don't have to be the star of the show in order to be in the play. And we're very happy with that, and young people are too. So what we did is we made footed cake plates, we made mini footed cake plates, we made sandwich trays, we made, what else did we make? Soup plates, we made bowls, everything. And then what you have on the right here, we call this wheat sheaf. It's a reproduction of something that we found at the Historic Natchez Museum. And it's beautifully sculpted because the flowers fall so well with gold. Now, you can be very contemporary with all of our products, because great design is enduring and it should be appreciated in any age. We say it's not your grandmother's china. It could be, but the point is you can mix it with other things and make it startling or spectacular. And so here we have some motifs that we took from the Metropolitan Museum bowl that we had from a long time ago. And it's called Emmeline. And it's very bright and fresh, and we like it. Now back to making things that come from a different source. This is making dinnerware out of wallpaper. So the wallpaper came from Colonial Williamsburg's Lightfoot House, and it had these baskets hanging in there and birds flying around and all kinds of leaves and foliage. And so I was looking around and said, well, what do we use for that? Because the wallpaper was actually quite yellow. And if we did this in white, it just didn't seem to me like it would be the right color, but maybe it would have been. So this is where it came from, and actually I like the colors of the roosters and the peonies and all that stuff, but what I was interested in was finding a basket motif. So here you see the motif that is up to the top. And these beautiful little white enameled flowers, chuck those, became this type of greenery. And then for Kohler Company, we made this tile wall mural, which is the birds from the Lightfoot house. So that's what you have here. And we only had 3 baskets on the wall, so we made a 4th basket. And since I can't hear you, I will not ask you which one you think that is, but you can debate that subject later. So they're all different kinds of porcelain and ceramics. But what we have here is what we call creamware, or in some cases, queensware. We did a whole series of things with the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in France because they had a really nice collection of embossed shapes. And on the left, you can see this is how they get holes in the porcelain. And it's very time consuming and very expensive. But we've had this bird terrine for more than 50 years and we still sell it. And here you see on the right is a person dipping the green fired porcelain into slip, which is a slurry of ceramic. And then that's fired. So about a little while ago, maybe a little, maybe 20 years ago, we were at Mount Vernon, and Mount Vernon had a license agreement with us for a long time, and then it sort of fell by the wayside. And Beverly Addington renewed that relationship, which I'm very grateful for. And so what we did was, you may be familiar with English Staffordshire stoneware, salt glazed stoneware. We decided to make it in porcelain, and because hard porcelain is vitrified all the way through, we decided not to glaze the outside edge so that you could see the decoration. And so we made what we call Prosperity into a dinner service using porcelain. And the reason we did this for the Mount Vernon is that George Washington, they found it in the archaeologists around Mount Vernon digging the stuff up. They came up with shards of this particular pattern. So we went back and we bought some plates. And then we 3D designed it. We printed it, 3D printed it with a very fine company in Portugal. And introduced this, which is a well-selling dinner pattern. Where are we on here, Paul? Prosperity. Oh, so I wanted to tell you about George Washington because we've had a license with Mount Vernon and a number of other historic associations. But George Washington's dining room was a well-used place. Let's see what I have as far as pictures. Oh, this is one of the earliest factories. This is called Du Paquier in Vienna, which only lasted 11 years, and they made things before decal world as drawings on paper, inked on paper that they would rub on the plate. So we've had a whopping 22 associations with different historical associations over the years. But for the book, we concentrated on 4: Mount Vernon, Winterthur, Williamsburg, and historic Charleston, because those are the deepest and the longest running time period that we've been involved with them. This is George Washington's actual dining room, and the colors on the wall are his actual colors. When we think about how it must have been so dull during this time period, I think we that's because the paints have faded and we don't really know what we're looking at. The dinner service on the left was commissioned for George Washington with the Order of Cincinnati, so they sent away to China with a book, and they said, "We'd like to have Fame holding aloft the American Eagle." You know, very appropriate. This was for the club of the officers who were former officers of the Revolutionary War. And I guess I should go back here because I don't know if you can see it very well, but it really was a little disappointing because Fame turned out to be sort of a bald-headed woman with a breast exposed, holding what I would consider was closer to a chicken, because I don't think that they had seen an American eagle, but this is a pattern that we still have, and the descendants of the Order of Cincinnati like it. So this is George Washington's kitchen, Martha's Washington's kitchen, shall I say. And we made this tureen, which is prosperity, which has a bisque glaze on the outside. This I won't go into the complexities of making that shape, but it was 3D printing. The next one, this is the Nathaniel Russell House of historic Charleston. The Nathaniel Russell was a ship owner and a tradesman, and he had a lot of wealth, and he also imported quite a bit of porcelain for the colonies, which for them was blue and white. They didn't get the colorful stuff because they couldn't afford it. But the British did better on that end. Yeah. We recently made this pattern in blue, but it started out in orange, and it's new on the market, and we think it's doing well. This is Winterthur and the hung bowl, which we reproduced with them. This is Williamsburg. This is Chelsea Birds, which has been in the line since 1989. And their wallpaper that they have reproduced and are selling now. This is some work that we've done with Rookwood pottery, which is an art pottery in Cincinnati that was begun in 1880, and by Maria Longworth Nichols, who it's been reconstituted today and run by Marilyn Scripps. We made stoneware with this skeleton leaf. And these are some of the items that we produced with rookwood. So if you take something like this, even if it's old-fashioned, you can still make it be contemporary. It works in any setting. This is a pine cone plate that we made from a tile at Rookwood, and this is Susie Slesson's table, who is Pointed Leaf Press publisher, who published our book. And as you see, you can take things from nature, and it's endless what the inspiration that you can have. This is Haviland and Parlon brand product that we distribute in the United States from Limoges. This is my house, and what's on the right is cashpo that I made as a takeoff from historic pieces. It's I'm losing my train of thought. It's we call it the Wufu cashpo because these actually are not butterflies, they are bats. And we took it from a very old plate, and the bottom shape is the symbol for the bat. And the bat Wufu means 5 happinesses, which are health, wealth,
virtue,
long life, and a happy end. Here you see lace again in different colors. Here on the right is Water Dance, which is a reproduction that we made from Winterthur's library on paper, Chinese watercolors. And we sell this tureen today, but don't put soup in it because you'll never wash it. And it defies nature because porcelain slumps in the kiln. And you just want it to slump in the right way. Then these are mice and dogs, bulldogs that we reproduced. This is dragon, and we put 1600 dragon on contemporary shapes. This is the Kremlin dinner service made for Tsar Nicholas I by Soltsev. And this is the Nelson Rockefeller dinner plate that I was talking about earlier that he made with Mottahedeh. And this is the very last image, which is cookies, because there are cookies in that book. And this is my daughter's hand-painted rendition of the dinner patterns that we sell.
On actual cookies.
On actual cookies, but you can't eat them because we don't have them. See this right here? So that's the iconic patterns are blue canton, femme vert, tobacco leaf, and now lace. And that is the end.
Thank you, Wendy. I still want a cookie. Those are just so gorgeous. I mean, I would buy the book just so I could have the picture and the recipes. Aren't the recipes in the book also?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. That's all you need from me. So I have a question before we check with Bill to see what's in the chat. But how did you go from your art and design background to being a businesswoman with the courage to take on such an enterprise such as this, and you've had so much success with it? How did you go? Was that a leap or it wasn't?
That was torture and suffering. I think one of the things I said in the book is that some people are one way and some people are another way in terms of their talents. But I find that I was capable of looking at the left brain side of things and the right brain side of things. The reason we bought the company was because I wanted to make stuff. That's the most fun. And but I cried a lot, I have to say, because I was 34 years old and people didn't like me all the time because um you have to do what you have to do sometimes for the health of your company. And uh Mrs. Mottahedeh was 82 when she sold the company to us. So she didn't really think that things needed to change much. And I was like the harbinger of change, let's say.
So
So
was the transition easy or not? Because she was there for a
she
while.
was there for 5 years.
So,
Yeah, no, it was not easy, but I had great respect for her and her knowledge. And it must be very hard to be in a position where somebody comes in and tells you you can't do certain things. So also my husband and our friend Jeff every 6 weeks would come for a board meeting at the showroom, and they would review everything and they would tell me what I needed to do in the next 6 weeks, all of which I had no experience about. But so they were a great support, and they were businessmen. And so they taught me how to run a business. But of course, they were on the financial side, and is a design side of which they might not have had that much knowledge. So I don't know. I guess a lot of it is stick-to-itiveness.
and can you give your address where your showroom is and when it's open? Can people make an appointment to come
Yeah,
Yes.
see
yeah.
the product?
We will give that to you, but we're at 200 Lexington Avenue, which is the design center building to the trade. Um, but it's in retailers, and on our website, it will tell you where the retailers are
And
by zip code.
somebody put your website on the chat maybe for people to go to?
Yeah, it's very simple too. It's Mottahedeh, www.mottahedeh.com. It's
Okay.
just our name. Yeah.
So one other question I have was about how many different countries and companies you manufacture all this beautiful work with. Is there one that you work with primarily? And um,
There are two. Yeah, there are two in Portugal. And then the lithographers are in France, Portugal, Germany. And the creamware is made in Italy and
Majolica is made in Italy.
Majolica. And it moves around over time, but the thing is, we're a design firm, so we don't have a factory. So it's a question of who you can work with that has the skill or the desire to do uh, what we want. It's a conversation, I would say. And then there's a checkbook.
right. So do you have a favorite of yours? Not just what's the best seller, but what you like best, whether you designed it or somebody else did? Is there an absolute?
Yeah, well, we have Femme Verte, which is the one with the little goji berries, the red and I mean red and green and yellow every day. And I also am very partial to the Marian dinner service, which is very fancy, but I it was an initiation for me, so I'm attached to that one.
So where do you actually sell the work? Are there are the places like the Metropolitan Museum of Art, do they sell the works that you produce?
Well,
Uh,
they did for a long time, but the Metropolitan Museum wants a bigger margin than uh, it's very difficult to find a balance between how much the thing actually costs and what people are willing to pay.
But Williamsburg sells it, Historic Charleston, Mount Vernon.
Yeah,
So,
the museums, Williamsburg, Historic Charleston, Mount Vernon, and
Winterthur.
Winterthur all sell products, and you can ask to see their catalog, and they'll get anything for you. But we sell to about 200 clients around the United States, so that's retail. So that's how we sell it.
Okay. All right. And I know when you visited, we had a conversation which intrigued me because one of the questions we get at the Dinnerware Museum periodically is about somebody who wants to have something made and they can't find that kind of, well, nobody's producing anything in this country at the scale, at the quality, I think of, well, I'm making this statement, it sounds wrong, but they're not doing what you're doing in general. There's not a lot of ceramics companies that are left. They've closed. And so
Very few, very few.
you know, I want to make something in high quality porcelain or some other.
You have to make enough of it. That's the thing, because this is a manufactured process, and the factories are not interested in doing one-offs. They're interested in volume. So you have to convince them that it was a good thing to do. Like we've made some china for private airplanes, and we did about maybe it's even 10 years ago now, we did a job for Citicorp, where they wanted to give a porcelain box to every member of their company worldwide on June 15th of whatever year that was. And we produced 92,000 porcelain boxes, and then we shipped them to like 72 countries, and it almost killed us. It was very, so, you know, that's big volume, but the cheap price. So, it's got to be big enough. That's the whole point. Not like that, but like, in Europe, they go for a 72-piece set when somebody gets married. 72 pieces is like, they could do that.
So we have a few questions from the
Mhm.
chat.
Mm-hmm.
First, early on in your talk, you said that Rafi was a refugee. Where was he a refugee from?
Iran.
Iran?
Iran. Rafi was a Baha'i, and the Baha'is over the last couple hundred years have been persecuted, and they've been removed from their businesses, and they are not allowed to go to college. But this was in the 1920s, long before it got really bad there. But he was a Baha'i, and that's why he was a refugee.
Okay. And another question, some decals and gold luster are not food safe. How do you deal with that on some of the pieces?
What we use is food safe. The industry standard is the most stringent in the United States. And if you're using antique porcelain or vintage porcelain or older porcelain, it may not be food safe. But we meet the FDA standards for that. We don't meet the California standards because those people want no lead. But there's more lead in your drinking water than there is on a plate that we produce.
That's scary.
But true.
So you do testing to verify this?
The government FDA comes in and does random testing for shipments that come into the United States. Yes.
Okay, so it's the
And then
FDA.
if you don't meet the standard, which has never been a case with us, but if you don't meet the standard, they confiscate your goods, and that's it for you, you know, on that one.
Hmm.
Huh. So I have another question. early in my career, I worked in the model shop at the Hall China Company.
Mhm, mhm.
And you mentioned that some of the pieces you make they're 3D printed. Do you ever do modeling the old-fashioned way, like I learned, using
Well, that's what,
clay?
yes, that's what my friend Dan Melman has done for us. He's made the models for quite a number of pieces. And then we take it to the factory and they cast off of that.
I do want to mention, since you mentioned Dan Melman, who is on this Zoom, Dan's going to be giving the presentation for us in November about,
Oh,
well, we could let Dan speak up if he wanted to right now, but I don't want to put
yeah.
you on the spot, Dan. But my husband and I have visited Dan's, I'll call it studio, his work area near Albany, and it's spectacular. So I hope he's going to give us a little tour of all that. And that's how I learned about Wendy and Mottahedeh, because he donated some examples of Mottahedeh's work to the museum. So we have that.
Mhm.
But anyway, I don't see Dan. Dan, he's not muted. I see he's not muted. So, or he is muted, excuse me. So maybe he's not going to tell us anything tonight. But anyway, Dan's going to be our presenter in November. So
Great.
I look forward to that. So
Do you want to say something, Dan?
maybe he doesn't know how to unmute.
I think probably not.
Anyway, Dan, we can't wait till that. But so do other people. I've been hogging. I'm sorry, Wendy. I've been hogging your attention here. But do other people have questions? You've got lots of flattering comments in the chat. So
Oh, great.
I know you were appreciated. But does anyone have any questions?
I think I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Am I? Well, I just want to say thanks, Wendy, and thanks for working together for so long. And when I look at your book, I remember every single one of those cookies from your shows.
Yes, what our motto is, they don't come in for the porcelain, they'll come in for the cookies.
That's it.
Wonderful. So I think we're going to wrap it up this evening. And Wendy, I want to thank you so much for your presentation, and remind everybody that if you want the link to the book, it's in the chat. And if you want a link to their showroom and the website, I think that's on the chat, and you can get that there. Or you can email me, director@dinnerwaremuseum.org, and I'll answer any of your questions and link you up with Wendy. So thank you very much, Wendy. We're very appreciative.
Thank you. So are we.
Thank you, everybody. We're going to say good night now.
Good night. Thank you.